Skiing has some really interesting stories in its past, and on today's Big Picture Skiing podcast episode, that's what we are going to delve into and find out more about. Because I think when you visit somewhere new, say I'm going to a new ski resort or a new ski town, one of the things I love most is finding out about what makes that culture, that community, that place special and unique. And a lot of how that's shaped is from its past. The influential skiers that used to ski there or visited there or built some type of infrastructure. Perhaps it was the first chairlift. All those things sort of lead to making that place unique and that place the kind of place you want to come back to and love skiing at. So today's episode, I found someone, and his name is Blake, and he's better known as Old Bald Skier on Instagram. You should go check him out. You'll find out some great stories today from him. But I was intrigued by his way of short form storytelling on Instagram about some influential skiers, ski racers, free skiers, as well as sort of some fun, interesting facts like how we got like the green circle to black diamond designation of ski trail difficulty. There's a really cool story you'll find out about there, and even down to like how bananas actually helped shape how we ride chairlifts today and not just T-bars and surface lifts. So I guess this podcast is a storytelling one. I hope that it encourages you to perhaps take a keener interest in your own resort or perhaps your favorite resort or skiing history in general. Ask questions of people that came before you. Like, what was it like? Why did their runs get built this certain way? Why are we skiing with this type of style today? Who are the figures we are standing on the shoulders of before us to help us get to where we are? So this is one really sort of dear to my heart. I love skiing history. I love finding out about what happened before me, because that's definitely shaped how I am, how we all are as skiers today. So I hope you enjoy this episode of the Big Picture Skiing podcast, where we take a look at some stories from skiing history and how they've influenced where we are today. Blake, how did you get into skiing history? Was it something you stumbled upon or a passion from an early age?
Yeah, that's kind of a cool story that comes along with that. So, my buddy Steve, who actually owns the ski shop that I'm in right now, in Thunder Bay, it's called the Ski House. And his family started this in like 1963. His dad started this in 1963, and so he's been around skiing his whole life, and he knows skiing better than anybody. Probably, well, definitely better than me. Maybe he loves skiing more than me. And anyway, he was at the Calgary Ski Show. And he was dealing with a rep at the Calgary Ski Show, and this rep was taking over an account from their senior rep. And Steve was saying, "It's like, do you know who your senior rep is?" He's like, "Gosh, she's so wicked. That's Lily Morrison, who's now Lily Henry." And they're like, "Okay, yeah, we know Lily." And they're like, "Yeah, but she was in Maltese Flamingo with Glenn Plake." And they're like, "Well, who's Glenn Plake?" And he told me that story, and it kind of made me not angry, but like it just blew me away, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and like Glenn Plake was the man. Glenn Plake, Scott Schmidt, like those were the guys, and like Maltese Flamingo and Blizzard of Oz, those were the movies. And to think that there were these super influential skiers that weren't known to like the current generation of skiers kind of bothered me. And I thought, okay, if that's the case for these skiers, these guys who are in the industry, I must be missing some people as well. And so that's kind of where I got into like, well, let's talk about like the most influential skiers of the last century, because we didn't just wake up here with, fat skis and carving skis and amazing technology. How did and culture, like how did we get here? And that's kind of how I got down into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we live in an age now where you can take that idea. You don't have to wait for some TV show or the radio station decide to do something. You can take it on yourself, and because that's how I found
Totally.
you. That you had the post on Instagram. And by the way, Old Bald Skier is Blake's handle. but you had this post about the Crazy Canucks, and it was just really in 90 seconds, you kind of did this great little piece on them.
Before 1975, not a single North American skier had ever podiumed at a World Cup downhill event. But that all changed with Ken Reid, Dave Irwin, Dave Murray, Steve Podborski, and Jungle Jim Hunter. But you probably just know them as the Crazy Canucks.
And I knew some things about them, but then being reminded of like the kind of the steps, the milestones these guys had made. Yeah, I think it's really important, and it's like it's fascinating finding out these things that kind of got us to where we're at. So that was a big part of your passion here.
They totally like going into those guys for me as well, because I'm Canadian. The Crazy Canucks were like, I grew up with these guys, but not really knowing who they are. Like Steve Podborski and Ken Reid specifically, those guys they were household names when I was a kid. Like literally, they were on TV all the time. You always knew who they were, skiing or not. You knew who they were. But it wasn't really until I did this series that I really got to know like what they accomplished, and like Ken Reid being the first North American, not just Canadian, but North American to win a World Cup event. That's probably a bigger deal than we can really appreciate right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we should start there. So you're like, okay, I want to take on this sort of job of bringing some of this history to more people. You start researching, and you do this bit on the Canucks. Like, yeah, what did you discover about them?
So it actually didn't start with the Canucks. It started with Stein Eriksen, who was like
Tech.
He's kind of like you will call him the grandfather of the great grandfather of modern day skiing. And I didn't start with him for any particular reason other than I was like, well, where would all of this stuff have started? And I found Stein Eriksen. I got to learn about him, and then it kind of like moved into Franz Klammer. Actually, from Stein Eriksen, I went to Ed Lincoln. And the reason for that was I made a mistake in the post and people corrected me. And that was really cool too, because I'm like, oh yeah, like I didn't know that. And like you said, like I'm just some guy who's like, I'm not a TV, not produced on TV. I don't have like a network behind me. I'm just researching this stuff and throwing it up on on the computer and making a video and putting it up on Instagram, and I'm making mistakes. And it's cool when people correct those mistakes and you learn about a guy like Ed Lincoln, and then people are like, well, what about this guy? And that it's kind of like, it's been almost organic in that way, where people have just kind of, suggested, well, if you're going to talk about him, talk about him or her, or this group of guys, like the Crazy Canucks. And then you get into Crazy Canucks and there's a whole bunch of them, and so it's like, okay, well, I can't just talk about one Crazy Canuck, and then I got to talk about this other one. And then people are, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey and a fun thing to do on the off season.
Yeah.
You'll see like in the spring, like that's when I'm kind of doing these, and then they kind of fade off in the summer as I get into like the summer vibe. But yeah, it's cool to see how everything kind of morphs together like that.
So you started with Stein, and I'd never heard of Stein Eriksen until I had moved to Deer Valley to work as an instructor one season there, and he's pretty deep, links to that place. So yeah, what did you learn about this guy? Being the great grandfather, perhaps. Like, why is he the great grandfather of skiing?
Well, okay, so like, when Stein Eriksen was born, so he was born in like the 20s, like I think it was 1927. He was born in Norway. Skiing back then was nothing like we have today. Skiing back then was basically, it was ski jumping. And then, and that's what he was kind of getting into. And then they started doing ski racing. It was more like slalom type racing. Is much different from what we have today. And skiing got into the Olympics at some point. He ends up by winning the Olympics and kind of opening skiing up to masses, because it was probably, I don't know this for sure, but it was probably one of the first times that the skiing and the Olympics was televised, so people could actually watch it in some way. Maybe it was in newsreels, I don't know. And so he kind of bursts onto the scene, and they're like, oh, this is the best skier in the world. Okay, Stein Eriksen, best skier in the world. And Sun Valley contacts him and says, come here. We're going to put you up. We're going to put you up at residence, and you're going to come here and you're going to ski. and you're going to ski with movie stars, and people are just going to be around you, and we just want you to be here and do your 1 o'clock front flip every day and grow and it grew ski culture around him. He was kind of like the nucleus that like our North American ski culture kind of grew around. And I mean, it's kind of cool that it came out of like with Sun Valley too, because Sun Valley is on its own is kind of a little nucleus, because I'm sure, as you know from one of my posts, like Sun Valley was where the first chairlift was built, like the first chairlift, not like one of, like the first chairlift. So anyway, so Stein Eriksen moved there, and and ski culture just kind of was created around him, because we're talking now in like the 50s and 60s, and there's new clothing, new fabrics, colors, and he just sort of like pushed skiing into like a new modern era. Yeah, it's just
He
a
he was sort
really
of
interesting dude.
the coolest dude of that era, of that time.
Oh, yeah, what was it? There was that quote, like Billy Kidd said, like, the women want to ski with him and the men want to ski like him. Like everybody, you remember that old school style of like your knees were locked, and like, like that was Stein Eriksen started that. That was Stein Eriksen's major influence, one of his major influences on skiing,
He then did he work for Sun? Like, did he help the ski school? I'm trying to remember.
Oh yeah.
What was his name?
He basically like revamped the entire ski school. So they had him over there to like ski and be whatever. And then also like, yeah, we want you to teach skiing. And he made his own skiing, like he had his own skiing style. And he had this thing, it was called like the delay shoulder turn. And I don't know what it is, because it's hard to see like what skiing was like before him, because he was sort of like that's when ski media, will say, kind of took on. So you couldn't really see what a skier before him looked like, other than like, kids with their toes pointed in and,
Yeah.
poles up in the air. And he created his own ski academy style of teaching, as a lot of these really influential skiers did, and that's a really common thing that you'll see throughout ski history, are guys that are winning the Olympics or doing really well in ski racing, take up residence at a certain ski hill, ski resort, mountain, and they kind of make their own ski style. Because like, I don't know what the body is in Australia, but like in Canada, it's CSIA, right? And the CSIA wasn't around. It wasn't a thing, and so they, all this stuff had to be created. There was no book. There was no YouTube videos. If you want to learn how to ski, you went to Sun Valley and you hung out with Stein Eriksen. And and later on he went to Deer Valley and did the same thing with them. So he took over their ski school, and I think that's where he ended his career, was at Deer Valley.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are probably people listening who are like, well, I know in Australia anyway, the Austrians had a huge influence on many nations outside of their own, and how that style was influenced. But yeah, there are these other people that Stein Eriksen turn, with the kind of the body really facing to the outside, and the feet close together, and sort of that over angulated look, and the really flared out pole plant. That was totally him.
And those long, like sort of almost cross country, poles, like things. Yeah, where we've come to now, like if you just took a photo from then and a photo from now, they don't even look like the same sport. Like, other than the fact it's two poles and two sticks on your feet, it's not the same sport. It's wild how far we've
And he had a real slinky kind of, like, a little bit retraction-y sort of style, didn't he? The same that footage you had in those.
It was smooth, like
very smooth.
I've never had the opportunity to try out the equipment from back then, but there's no way I can make it look like that. I look at it and I'm like, he's making it look easy, which must be really hard.
Mhm. So from Stein, you then started researching Franz Klammer, is that right?
Yeah, so he was a super influential skier as well. He was in the 70s, but what he did was, one, And the way that he like clobbered, they call him the king, Kaiser, like the king. Like he clobbered people. Nobody could really keep up with him. I mean, unless he fell or was having an off day or something. But what he did was not so much in ski culture, but he changed skiing as a sport by carving. So he actually widened his stance in his turns and carved around. So he was using his inside and uphill and downhill ski and using his edges to try to carve around the turns. And you have to remember, like, these skis back in the day are like, they're 240, I think, like just massively long and straight. There's a little bit maybe of shape to it, but not very much. And the only way to really control them before this was if you wanted to do a turn, you would just kind of like pivot your feet and your ankles and just kind of skid around a turn, put your skis in the direction you want to go, and then try to dive into that. And Franz figured out to, like, if you widen your stance and keep your edges engaged and allow them to guide you around the corner, you're not going to lose that speed. And as an instructor, like when you're teaching racing and, you see that snow coming up, we're teaching in slalom or GS or whatever, and you're like, okay, that right there, that snow in the air, that's speed. You're losing speed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a control factor with all that as well, but yeah, he was the guy. He was the guy who brought that in, and that's why he won the 76 Olympics. And and he was the guy that the Crazy Canucks were not only chasing but were copying. They were emulating him.
So from him, and is he Austrian, German?
Oh, well, yeah, somewhere there. I'm gonna get a lot of crap for that one, but yeah, he's either the German or the fun German, and I can't remember which one it is. But I think he's Austrian. Yeah, I think he was Austrian. Oh, geez, I should know that, but
And I think that's probably a good point here, because the reason I, brought you on, and I wasn't, finding you're not like a university major in history, skiing history. This is something you've sort of found interesting, and I think even there, just like we just mentioned, it makes you then go, oh, I don't know about this. I'm going to go find out about it and research it and find out more things. So you got to give Blake like a bit of leeway here, just as I also don't know some of this stuff as well. Hopefully that's from this. Hopefully like from this, people then like start checking their facts or researching and finding out all this cool stuff about.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, like it was a story, like it was people not knowing who some of the ski gods are that made me realize, I'm like, okay, something needs to be done about this. Like you said, I'm just a guy who's figuring that out. And then when people do correct me, things happen. Like who like, did you know who invented the Lincoln Loop? Like where the Lincoln Loop came from? Why was it called the Lincoln Loop? I didn't know. It wasn't until I mean, I'm sitting here beside so this is Steve's mouse pad. It's Seth Morrison, and Seth Morrison, that was his trick, the Lincoln Loop, and I didn't know where that came from. So it's really cool when people chime in and be like, "Hey, Franz Klammer is actually Austrian." I know he is. I just looked it up. He is Austrian.
Okay, yeah. Good. The Austrians will be happy to Ben sure stated there.
Well, I think I won them over because I called them the fun Germans, right? That's.
So we've got Franz Klammer making, like, I guess probably an impact on like carving turns to keep speed, be cleaner, and win races. Then did that lead you into, because obviously you're Canadian, the Canucks?
Yeah. So where was the overlap? There was the overlap. There was, Franz Klammer he's a little bit older than the Crazy Canucks, and Ken Reed won the first World Cup, and I think it was 74. Shoot, that's another one I should know off the top of my head. But anyway, he competed against Franz Klammer they competed against Franz Klammer in the Olympics, and there was that overlap, and they were called the Crazy Canucks because they just kind of let it all go. Like they were going for it, and Ken Reed basically in an interview, he's like, I don't really get it why they call us the Crazy Canucks. I mean, we're just doing what Franz Klammer is doing. We're just copying him. We're carving around turns. We're staying on the edge of control. We're diving down at the end of the turn when we should be. And, just nobody else is doing that yet. And that was the thing. It was Franz Klammer was a major influence on the next, like the Crazy Canucks. Essentially, I wouldn't say they dominated in the late 70s and early 80s, but they were there, and there was no North American there before them. So they were just on the scene, and people were wondering, like, where do these guys come from? Where do these kids come from? And it was essentially, they're like, well, just doing what you guys are doing, but better.
Yeah. And in some of the thing that caught my eye in some of the footage of these Crazy Canucks,
Yeah.
is it did look like there's that one where one of the guys is in a wheel, like inside of a tire. Like, I guess I'm just referring to some of maybe the crazy training. So he would make himself dizzy and then get out and try and get in like a dryland tuck. And
I don't really know what the idea behind that was, but yeah, that was Jungle Jim Hunter. So he grew up in Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, which, I don't expect you to know Canadian geography, but Saskatchewan is like, it's the Great Plains. Okay. Kansas, Saskatchewan, North Dakota, Saskatchewan, they're basically the same. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for saying that too. But yeah, he had nowhere to train, and yeah, like there was no ski hill nearby, and he wanted to, build up his muscles and build up his ability to ski. And you have to remember, like, there wasn't really even a Canadian ski program. Like, he was like kind of the first part of the first Canadian ski team, especially for downhill anyway. And he'd had no way to train. So he would like get his dad to drive him down these Saskatchewan roads in a tuck on top of his truck. Like, he'd strap himself down the top of the truck in a tuck, and he built a starting ramp and a hayloft in his dad's barn. And, but he was right in the sense that, like, being a good downhiller, a lot of it is being strong and being able to, and being able to outlast your competitors. You're going down the mountain at 120 kilometers an hour for a minute and a half. You're going to get fatigued. And if you can beat that fatigue down, and if it means that you're throwing hay bales around or riding in a tire, that's how you do it.
That's how, yeah. So can you go through who are the Crazy Canuck members?
Okay. So I'll go through the ones that everybody essentially know, because there's no, like, you are the Crazy Canucks, yeah. So there's no like group of guys that are the Crazy Canucks, but so you got, like, I'll kind of just go through like the ones that everybody kind of knows. So there's Jungle Jim Hunter, so that's who we just talked about, and then there's Dave Irwin. So Dave Irwin's from Thunder Bay, which is where I'm at right now, and then there's Ken Reed. So he was, some people will say that he was like the leader of the Crazy Canucks. I would probably push back on that, and he would probably agree. It's like, no, they were a group, and there was no necessarily leader. He may have been one of the more successful. Steve Podborski, and then Todd. Oh shoot, what's Todd's name? Todd is the guy who had he had a really bad crash.
I remember the video you posted about him. Yeah,
like super, super bad.
That'll come back to you, I'm sure, or I'll look it up as you keep.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that I don't. Oh, and Dave Murray. And Dave Murray was a wicked dude. He's one of the only crazy. He's the only Crazy Canuck that unfortunately has passed. But he was one of those guys that started his own ski school. He did it at Whistler, and he's got he's got followers, basically. Like, people absolutely love this guy. Incredible skier, and just an awesome dude. And so, yeah, these guys, so it was the first, group of guys, and Todd kind of came later. He was a younger kid, and he kind of excelled in the 80s. But this core group,
because actually, I'll quickly say it when I search that on ChatGPT, it's like, no, he doesn't come up.
Right. He doesn't come up, but it's funny if you look at some of the interviews of the Crazy Canucks, and they'll say, well, who's the craziest, and they'll say Todd. They'll be like, oh yeah, it was Todd. But you know, and you know, and some people will even drop Jungle Jim Hunter off that as well, because he kind of was only on the team with the rest of the guys for like a year, and then the guys kind of like, you know, Steve Bobworski, Dave Irwin, Dave Murray, and Ken Reed kind of overshadowed Jungle Jim, and so then there was this other just group of guys, and yeah, that's sort of those were the core guys, really.
Yeah. So Steve, he actually won the World Cup downhill, like
Yeah.
overall title. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think for like a nation like Canada, who obviously, you know, you have snow, but in that era, you know, there's no Franz Klammer yet. There's no like that type of person. You know, Stein came from Scandinavia. So I guess for Canadians and even North Americans, that must have been quite a huge morale boost, and young people going, oh, wow, we've got the ability to compete on the world stage and win.
Oh, huge. Because I mean, before any North American won, before Ken Reed was actually like stepped onto the scene and won. And yeah, you know, you have to also mention someone like Nancy Greene. And so she was a huge influence on skiing even before the Crazy Canucks, right? But people up until then were like, well, no, this is a European sport, like North Americans. And that's kind of the way the Europeans thought. They're like, North Americans can never beat us. I mean, Europeans used to think that, you know, there was no good skiing in North America. You know, they'd be like, yeah, you got mountains, but like you can't really ski them. So anyway, this group of guys come on the scene and they start winning races, and then it's just like, okay, it's open. And I mean, you've got, you know, like we were talking earlier about the Australians are you know, they're on the scene in moguls, and you got Japanese as well. So it's no longer like a sport that's, you know, that's just for the Europeans. Now it's global, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. But that impact, you know, it's just like when you see the first double backflip or something, is someone's like, oh, well, you can probably do a triple.
Yeah.
You know, North Americans can win in the World Cup.
Yeah.
We're also gonna take it there. So now, I don't want to jump around too much.
Sure.
But you mentioned something important there, Nancy Greene.
Yeah.
So I think let's go, because she actually fits in a little bit in the history before that, and you did some research on Nancy Greene.
Yeah.
I'm really familiar. I know she was a champion and extremely competitive, always wanting to, you know, be the best skier on the mountain. So what did you learn about Nancy?
So again, when you talk about household names in Canada, Nancy Greene in the ski industry, in the ski world, is so ubiquitous that you just assume that that name's always been there. Okay. Like there's entire ski leagues and ski programs, and, you know, essentially mountains named after this woman, started by this woman and her husband. And she was, like the best female skier in the 60s. And she grew up in Rossland, which is out in BC. So Red Mountain, grew up skiing that. And I don't know if you ever skied Red, but like it's steep and it's hard, you know? And so she grew up skiing on that, and she was skiing with the boys, and she was trying to keep up with the boys, and, you know, she would beat them most of the time. And so she gets on the Canadian ski team and is like winning. She's winning the Olympics. What was that? She essentially almost broke her ankle a couple of days before, or a couple of months before the Olympics in the 60s, and got up and won the slalom and came second in GS. You know, like think about that. Like think about having like an almost season-ending injury, and then getting up and winning an event at the Olympics. You know, it's something that
really shows so much is in the mind, right? Like,
yeah,
sure, your body's got to be good, but the mind is saying, we're going to do this despite there being this, you know, critical injury.
Yeah, and what she did, like, after skiing, I mean, not only, like, did she do all she was a young kid, basically. She was in her 20s when she was winning all this stuff, and so she retires from skiing, and then is just stays super involved in Canada, not only, in sport, but she was actually a senator in Canada as well. So she was involved in politics, and then, she's also she helps start Whistler Mountain. I don't know if you ever heard of it, and Sun Peaks as well. So, her and her husband, essentially started these two mountains, and she had like just an enormous, uh, uh, influence on skiing, on ski culture, on the ski industry, but then was also just an amazing role model for young girls and women all across Canada and beyond, and for young boys as well. I mean, she basically let the boys know, it's like, "Yeah, we can beat you."
It's still called the Nancy Greene program, like that early starting race program in Canada. I remember, being at Silver Star and Sun Peaks, and on the weekend you'd see all these little kids in Nancy Greene vests.
The Nancy Greene Ski Club is all across all across the country. So from Newfoundland to British Columbia up to the Yukon. Like anywhere that there's a ski hill, a mountain, at Nancy Greene, is essentially there in at least in the town. And I don't know exactly where the funding comes from or how it works, but it's just some kids learning the basics of skiing and ski racing specifically, and just kind of loving it. And yeah, it's huge, like it's absolutely massive. So it's literally a countless number of kids have learned how to ski because of Nancy Greene. Like I don't know if you can really say you probably can't say she's the most influential skier, but she's pretty damn close.
Yeah, for Canada, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, impacting a huge amount of people from an early age, which I think is so important in building people up to that national level. So then after Nancy, where is that when you started going, okay, well, not just people. I really enjoyed learning about some of the other things, like like the history of why we have green circles, blue squares, black diamonds. That was cool. So I want to hear about that one, or the chairlifts, history of chairlifts. So where do you want to go?
oh man, let's start with the Mickey Mouse thing, because I think that was probably that kind of threw me for a loop. I can't remember how I found out about it. But like I say in the post, is like for me, and I know you ski a lot over in Europe. I've only skied in North America. And for me, like the green circle to double black diamond, it's just been a system that's always been around, and I just thought that's the way it was. And when I found out that it was actually Walt Disney that came up with that system, I was pretty much mind blown. I'm like, one, Walt Disney is like, when I think of Disney, I think of California, and I think of Florida. But sure enough, yeah, he was trying to start a ski resort in California, probably not far from Lake Tahoe, and he needed a way to designate the runs, and he came up with green circle for easy, blue square for more difficult, and then it was just black diamond for most difficult, and then double blacks came on a little bit later, and then the triple blacks, just for fun, were thrown in there. And yeah, before that, it was kind of like a mishmash of
Does it just run names? Was it? I mean, like, did they even? I suppose
they had. Yeah, no, they had like a designation. So like I think green circle was still, or was it blue square? I can't remember, but I think it was green circle was like still the easier run, and then there was like a yellow triangle, but for more difficult. But at another resort, it could have been like just the run name. You just had to know, like they would call like the easy run the bunny hill, the bunny run, and the more difficult one, and the most difficult one they call it like like Devil's Dive or something like that. And you just had to kind of know, and there was no way. Whereas now you just like, oh, green circle, okay, take the kids down that, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go try that this afternoon. This one, Devil's Dive, double black diamond, let's do it.
And so in finding,
it's
in finding out more about that stuff, because I always thought, oh, there's got to be some rule book of like a blue
yeah,
square has to be within this degrees and has to be a
yeah.
certain. There's not.
Totally.
There's no.
Totally. Yeah. No, I couldn't find anything. There's a number of governing bodies, and there was not one that said like, yeah, like you said, like from 0 to 12 degrees is a green, and then from 12 to 18 is a blue, and then up from there. No, it's totally just like you find out, okay, that's like the easiest run, and you think like anybody can snowplow down that. Okay, we're gonna call that a green. And then that's the hardest run on the mountain. So, you have to be a super expert to be able to do it. Okay, that's a double black. And they just kind of like come up with, the designations as you want. And, I say in that post, I'm like, yeah, it's possible that double black could have been a blue at Revelstoke. Because we've all done that, right? We're like, what? This would be a green at that mountain. Like, why is this a black? Like, this is kind of ridiculous. And, and there are like, the main at Kimberley, so that's the longest lit ski run in North America, is actually has its own kind of designation that I haven't seen at too many other places. It's actually a blue square with a green circle in the middle. And I think that means it's kind of in between. It's not really a blue square and it's not really a green. But I'll tell you, there are parts in that run that could be, again, like black, green, and blue throughout the whole run. So, but
Yeah, it must be tricky, right? Because some places something gets called a black just because of this 20-foot section that's the rest of it's green, but you wouldn't send a beginner down there. So it's really tricky in I guess figuring that out, because I know like using Carve, they draw on the maps and go, okay, well, that one's been designated as a blue or a red in Europe, and they're starting to read the pitch, the slope, right? And so you're getting right, so you're getting actual numbers on it. And of course it's different because half of it might be 12 and then the other half might be like 28.
yeah.
And so I'm not sure yet with that, I think they're breaking into sections, but you can see which sections are exactly what. And you look at this black run and it's like 18 degrees. It's like, don't know if that really is the case. But yes, I found that fascinating when you said, no, there's no, like, if I started a ski resort now, I don't have to adhere to blues being this and whatever. And I even know, like, at some places they actually even deliberately make like the blue squares a darker blue. So it's like, that's not just a blue, that's a dark blue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I think is great. I think that's, and even like greens, because then because we, like you said,
It's like a gradation of the colors. Sure.
yeah, because go back, Walt chose that because he realized,
Yeah, so people will we can pick up on colors and shapes a lot more quickly than we can pick up on description. Like I could flash a card to your face just really quick, and in like a millisecond, you'd be able to know what the shape was on that. If it was a simple shape like a square or a circle, you'd know the color. But if I was like, I had this like convoluted designation and I flash that to you real quick, you'd be like, I don't know what you just did there. Yeah. And he recognized that from being in animation, and that's, again, like it was really interesting to learn that a guy like Walt Disney, which I mean, it's funny to say those two words in the same sentence, skiing and Walt Disney, but he had, again, an enormous influence on our industry. Like the designations that we're all so aware of came from him drawing pictures with Mickey Mouse. Who knew?
yeah, fascinating. So then ski lifts and bananas, or
Yeah.
bananas.
Bananas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
whatever.
bananas. Tell us.
Oh yeah. So this one again, it kind of blew my mind. And there was two things that blew my mind in this. One was that the ski lifts came from like moving bananas around. And the other one was that the first ski lift, like chairlift in the world, was actually in North America. We talked about this a little bit earlier, where it was in Sun Valley, Idaho, was the first lift. And the towers still stand. I don't think the lift is still in operation, but they still stands at another mountain. But yeah, so there was this guy, was his name James Curran, who worked for Union Pacific. And Union Pacific, we have to kind of roll our brain back and think about the 1920s and 30s, and before Amazon and Facebook and these huge massive conglomerations or corporations that we have now. And those back then were the railroads. So the railroads were huge. So Union Pacific, CP Rail, like these were the companies that basically ruled the world, and Union Oil and all that stuff, right? And so Union Pacific owned this mountain, and they wanted a more efficient way to get their riders, and a cooler way too, right? Because we're also talking about marketing. They wanted a cooler way to get people up the mountain, because before this, people were using, T-bars were kind of around, rope tows were the thing, and sometimes they would have like horse-drawn carriages or whatever to get people up. And
so let me just jump in there. So, because I'm just trying to making sure I'm getting it right in my mind. So before this, drag lifts. Yeah. So it's not like for lift, because I guess in my mind I'm like, a lift is is anything that drags you up. But we're saying that this is the first chairlift.
Chairlift. The first time that a skier was carried above the ground.
Yes.
And like, how cool is this? Like, we're taught, like, this has never been done before. No one's thought about doing this before, right? Like, we've been up until this point, we've been moving rocks in mining, and a lot of ski lifts came from old mines and old mining equipment, and bananas from one place to another. And this guy James Curran, who worked for Union Pacific, was tasked with converting a hook, like a banana hook, to put a seat on it and turn it into a chairlift. And they installed it at Sun Valley, which again, Union Pacific owned, and boom, the chairlift was born. And like, literally, skiing was never the same. Because I mean, I don't know, I love surface lifts, like I love T-bars, but I also really love an old center pole chairlift. I love a high speed quad and a gondola. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't always there. Like, again, like, it's, Stein Eriksen brought, ski culture and skiing to what it is, more to what it is now. And at the same time, around the same time as Stein Eriksen was around, the ski lift was invented. It's totally bonkers.
Yeah, because I suppose then it opens up a different, where you can put a lift. Because now I'm thinking, okay, it was a pretty good system just dragging people up.
Yeah.
And it has positives, like I know in Australia, Perisher has a lot of surface lifts and they run in the wind, whereas the chairs shut down when we get the weather systems come in. So there's positives there, but you can't go up over a rock band like the top Whistler out.
Although I'll tell you, okay, so there's this defunct ski resort, ski hill in Thunder Bay. It's called Big Thunder, and you're allowed to kind of hike around there, and in the winter, if you're allowed to, but people go up there and ski. And I was up there once, and I was skiing down, and I was in the old T-bar area, and there was like a boardwalk that they had built over a cliff, so you could use the T-bar to go over this cliff. So I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. But still, it's a lot easier just to, pick you up here and drop you off up there, and not have to worry about those rocks whatsoever. And so the chairlift, opened up, terrain that wasn't really accessible that easily. I mean, you could always walk up there if you wanted to, but the chairlift really made it so you could do that. And and the chairlift morphed into the gondola, so you're enclosed. And then the detachable quads and detachable lifts came around, and the bubble lifts, and now we got heated seats, and it's come
Did
a
you
long
find
way.
out? Did you find anything out about when lift companies first sort of like you think of Pommer and so like the big Austrian names? Did your research take you into that yet?
I haven't gotten there yet, but it's definitely something that's interested me, because we've got like now we have Leitner Palma, right? And I think Leitner also took over what was it not Obermeyer, that's the clothing company, but Doppelmayr.
Doppelmayr.
So they took that, like Leitner Palma bought Doppelmayr, and Doppelmayr got their technology and whatever. I think, I haven't researched that, but it's one that I want to get into because I think it's really, really interesting. And again, it was really interesting to know that it wasn't one of those big companies that we know of, the ones that we see on the side of the lift shacks, Doppelmayr, Leitner Palma, that invented or created the first chairlift, because like the first elevator was invented by an elevator company that's still around, like Otis elevators, like they're still around, like they started elevators. And we didn't, it's not the same way for this. It was just some guy he was like, yeah, we could put a chair, a chair on that, put people up. Let's do it.
So at this point, what would you say are some things you've really learned from now taking this interest in ski history and sort of going back and learning where things came from? Like, what has it really taught you?
Oh, yeah, that's a really heavy question. I mean, I've been skiing for as long as I know. Like, I think my parents put me on skis the first time at 3. So skiing for me isn't like it's not a pastime. It's like a vocation. Like it's an obsession. Like my son will even say, my son has said, that I like skiing too much. He likes skiing, but he doesn't like skiing as much as I do, I guess. But and so it's always been around. And where like how I got this involved in it and how I got this kind of obsessed with it, I can't really say. But some of the things that I absolutely love about skiing is, like, the culture of skiing, how it brings people together. This is true. Like, I'm not making this up. I had 2 kids, and I told my wife we're only having 2 kids because you can only fit 4 people on a chairlift. Being a kid of 3, so I'm the middle child. There was, if we were all skiing together as a family at 5, which we rarely did, 'cause my mom didn't really ski, but there was always one kid left out, or, there'd be a 3 and a 2, and there'd be a fight of who's going with mom, and, and this sort of thing. And so, skiing has, influenced a lot of my decisions, and how I got there, and the things that I learned through this has been super, super interesting. I think probably one of the more important things that I've learned along the way of doing this, going back to that ski culture thing, is, I kind of talk about, like, the nucleus of different ski culture and how they grew. And I think one thing that we need to recognize is, we can maybe say there's like a trifecta of skiing, and one, like a triad of skiing. One is like the ski community. One is your local or your regular mountain that you go to, and those two things can't exist really without. And sometimes it happens at the ski hill, but they can't exist without, like, a ski shop. And your local ski shop is, it's I don't, like, maybe a bike shop would be an equivalent or something, but there are things that you can get, and advice that you can get at a local ski shop that you can't get anywhere else. You can't go on Amazon and say, oh, that boot is the color that I want and it's in my price point, put it in my cart and check out. Because, I've been following your boot fitting obsession on your podcast here. And I can tell you that one of the reasons why Steve, who owns the ski house, and I are so close is because I actually came in and I bought a pair of boots. I did just that. I was like, those boots are Greene. They're $250 and I want them. And they didn't work for me. And Steve spent hours punching these things out and making them work for me. And, we developed a relationship basically over these boots. And that's just not something that you can get from a big box store even. Like in the States, they've got Dick's Sporting. In Canada, we've got Sport Check, and you probably have something similar in Australia. I can come into the ski house in Thunder Bay and tell Steve, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be going to Revelstoke in March. What skis do you think I should bring? And he knows my skis. He knows my skiing ability. He knows what skis I have, and he can set me up with the right equipment. He can make sure that, and if there's anything that goes wrong, he's there as a support. He does all the brokering between me and because I'll tell you what, man, I break a lot of stuff, and that, that's the truth. And it's that kind of touch that you're not getting from these big box stores or from an online retailer. Now, some of these online retailers are local ski shops, but going in and having somebody walk you through that process is invaluable. It can really save you from having a terrible time out on the mountain. And I have a friend who's a ski rep, and he's now working for Atomic, and he's got a theory that he's like, you know what, shops shouldn't have boot walls. Get rid of boot walls. Put the boots like up above where people can't really see them, because you don't want somebody coming in and doing that. I want that boot. I'll take it. You want them. Okay, you need boots. Sit down. Let's measure your feet. Let's figure it out. Okay, I'll go to the back. Okay, price point, flex, all that. Okay, boom, boom, boom. We'll line you up and we'll get you the boot that's right for you. And that's just it. Is that person, that boot fitter, that the owner of the ski shop, the kid who works at the ski shop, they're there to make sure that you are getting what is best for you, and they want you and your family to enjoy the sport as best you could. Steve has a program here in Thunder Bay, which is wicked. So he has, I think he's got 1,500 pairs of kids skis now, and he rents them out seasonally. So you can come in like with your 4-year-old who's just learning to ski, rent a pair of skis for $150 with skis and boots. And then next year, so you bring them back next year, you don't have to buy another pair, use another $150, and maybe they're using poles now. So it comes with poles all the way up until almost 16 years old. He has, his skis are that length. And one, he's doing that because it's a service he's providing to his community, but it's also like, skiing's not that cheap. Like it can be quite expensive, and having the ability to to come in and for a family of, if you got 2 kids, for $300 and just get boots and skis, and not have to deal with them in the off season, not have to worry about selling them on Facebook and making sure you're getting really good equipment the next year. It really helps with that affordability, and gets kids out there. Yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing for me that kind of brought it around, and I was like, there's a lot more to skiing than just watching guys go down and down a face and do big flips and whatever. There's so much more behind that, and behind that is your local ski shop and the people who are running your mountain, who are holding your chairs for you, who are grooming the hills, who are going out and cutting down, doing the glading, like all that stuff. What we do, the enjoyment that we get, couldn't happen without this group of people. And these people who just love this sport more than maybe you and I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I'm getting from that are ski stories, and sharing these ski stories so that these things don't get forgotten. Because I know whenever I go to a new ski town, a new ski resort, for me, not new as in it's built new.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah. I am fascinated by going into a shop, or those cool pubs that have history, and there's all this stuff on the wall, and I love hearing the stories about those places.
This place?
Village Idiot. I don't. I've been to Revelstoke a few times, but I don't know about
if you haven't been to Village Idiot, you haven't been to Revelstoke.
Okay. The one that came to mind was in Red Mountain.
Oh, Rafters.
Yes, Rafters.
Yeah.
Places like that.
Oh.
Yeah,
wicked.
but I think that's what I think fascinates everybody. These stories, the history, what built upon what to get us where we are now. Chairlifts, starting from carrying bananas to places, and innovations in ski style from all over the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, influential figures like Nancy Greene. I think finding out about those stories is so interesting. So I want to urge you to keep like finding out these more sort of interesting things. So maybe I'm going to point out now, get on Instagram, follow at Old Bald Skier, and, you know, comment on some of the videos, or even maybe you should make one. What should be the next topic, and pin it at the top, and people should put in, I want to what about this, or this is, or I know a fascinating story. Look into this.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Because that's what I love about your channel. Like, you know, I sort of know of these Canucks, these crazy Canucks, but you know, what are some other little facts that we don't know about? Where did ski run difficulty designation colors come from? Like, that's it's really cool. So you're in this unique space in being interested in filling in the blanks for us. So thank you.
Yeah, and there's more guys coming up. Like, I know people are you know, they're like, well, what's going on with Glenn Blake and Scott Schmidt? Guys like, you know, like Shane McConkey, Canadian kid, by the way. You know, like what's going on with these guys? Like, there's so many there that need to be explored, and they are coming. But I'm just a regular dude, you know, making this up as I go.
Well, if you haven't checked it out, it's like I'm giving you some props here. The editing to take the photos and and you sort of bring them to life and cut it down to 90 seconds. I know that is really difficult, but there's kind of like an art and something to that I think is good for, I guess, ourselves. When you have to make these videos, you go, what can be cut? What's really interesting?
Yeah.
As opposed to having 60 minutes.
And it can be tough to figure out. And then I appreciate you know, mentioning the photos, because they take a little bit more time than you might think. There's some nuance to it for sure.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I could pump out like so many more of these if I just, you know, kind of, you know, maybe dumbed it down a bit, but like, I kind of want to just, you know, it's fun for me, and I want people to be entertained and educated at the same time. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, no problems. So, I mean, I guess as we wrap this up, I would say my hope in reaching out to you and bringing this up is I hope it maybe encourages people to go to their local ski shop and talk to the guy that started. Hey, why did your dad start this ski shop? You know, maybe find out a little bit of history in your area, or if you know, new to skiing, you go somewhere, take an interest, I think, in the culture, in not just skiing down the mountain, but finding out, where did this place, how did it start? Why is it done this way? Because I think it just ties you further into the fabric of skiing. And that's what I love about, I do love about skiing. So.
Yeah. And you know, I know I have a tendency to ramble, and I know you're trying to wrap up here, but one of the things I was chatting with Steve about, like, I was like, when did this shop start and how did it start? It's actually kind of a funny story. Was his dad Bill Scully and his business partner Bill Sheehan owned a men's clothing store, and they put like in the front window they put a display of like men's clothing, but then had like skis there as well, and people were coming in about the skis and not the clothing, and then they're like, oh, this is something. All right, let's start a ski shop. And then, you know, here they are like 60 some years later, still running a ski shop.
Yeah, like stuff like that. That's just super cool. We think we know the direction life is going to take us in. And then, you know, once you start doing that and the world interacts with you, it often tells you, no, hang on, your calling is to do this. So yeah, any other final words you would say before we finish this up?
No, but I do want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. It is nice to know that that people are you know, sort of engaging with this and absorbing it. You know, because it's nice also when people are commenting, and I can kind of, you know, back and forth with them. It is really nice. But I also do want to say, like I said to you earlier, I found your channel this year with my kids. I was teaching them some drills, and I found your channel, and I found it really helpful to get the drills that I needed to get my kids from you know, getting rid of a certain habit and getting into something else. And I appreciate what you do as well, Tom. It's great. And it's so great that we have these communities like YouTube and Instagram that are used appropriately like that. And we're
Yes.
having fun with it. So I
I agree.
And thanks for having me on today. This was pretty fun. I mean, I could talk to you about skiing for another 3 hours easy.
I know, and that's what this podcast is about. It's so you can then sit in the car, on the bus, out on a walk and listen to a ski conversation, because maybe your wife doesn't want to hear more skiing chat with you because you're like you and I, too obsessed with skiing.
Yeah, she'll get up in the middle of dinner if I'm chat, or like at the end of dinner, Buddy and I are just drinking beers, chatting. Just be like, I'm gonna get out of here. Yeah, totally.
I know that situation. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of the listeners do too. So yeah, thanks so much for your time. And keep putting those great stories out there. And thanks everyone else for listening to the podcast.